learn, connect, add value, have a positive attitude. The common denominator with people who are real estate entrepreneurs is they are always working on their personal development. You go to these classes, classic and current concepts of personal development.
Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most and do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right, no extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
Okay, welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Ginger Faith. Ginger has been a successful real estate investor for 30 years. She is a real estate broker, builder, CEO of Golden Canyon Properties Incorporated, and has flipped over 52 houses, 2 of which were featured on HGTV. She is an Airbnb superhost, a landlady banker. She bought her first large, profitable commercial real estate investment in 1994. She is the founder of Your Wealth Network meetup group and the Women's Wealth Network in San Francisco Bay Area, as seen on Fox, CBS, NBC, and Yahoo Finance. Ginger, this is going to be exciting. Welcome to The Wealth Flow.
Happy to be here, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into your story. I do always like to start with really just, where did you grow up, though, and what led you to real estate?
I was in Pasadena area until I was 12. Then my mom moved out to Boston. And I started in real estate when basically I started listening to Tony Robbins, who told me I could do anything. I read around 1992. And I was listening to these tapes where he was talking about Colonel Sanders and how Colonel Sanders had 1,000 rejections for for finally he made it. I was listening to that inspiring story and it encouraged me to start a business. And then once I started this business, it was very profitable. I didn't know what to do with the money. So I started trying to figure out after I bought so many shoes, I couldn't handle it anymore. And so I was like, I have to do something more intelligent with this money. So I started, looking into the stock market and mutual funds and all that and real estate as well. And so I started reading a book, Nothing Down by Robert Allen, who was a big guru back in the 80s, 90s. Mm-hmm. And I liked his way of thinking. I liked his approach. It was very methodical and basically said 1 single family home per year for 10 years. And that's your retirement plan because you'll pay off the mortgages and then the rents will increase over time. And then you're going to have your retirement savings all taken care of. And I thought, that's a good idea. I can do that. Instead of doing that, I got a little ambitious and I said, what if I buy a multifamily house? Then I'll jumpstart it and I won't have to wait 10 years. So I ended up buying a 7,000 square foot Victorian that was an absolute mess, but it had really good bones, had mahogany library and beautiful floors, but the outside looked like a train wreck. Had 3 different colors, had green, tan, and red. I think every time the hardware store had a sale, the guy would just go and paint a section of the house.
Wow.
It's a great location, but it was just really a mess. But it had a widow's peak, and I was inspired because I had vision for what I could do with it. And I remember having seen that same house maybe 6 months before and had a for rent sign. And I said, oh my God, who would rent that disgusting house? But then once it was for sale and I thought I could get a deal and then I started doing the math, all of a sudden it was a very beautiful house. And nobody was talking about value add or anything like that, buy the worst house. And I don't know if I ever read that. I don't even think I did, but it just made sense to me. I'm like, oh, I can put paint on it and I can do this and that. And So that's how I started. And then I got the bug. It was profitable right away. As soon as I painted the outside of it, I had people lining up with applications and then I had it rented right away. I was a little bit sloppy with my tenant selection. Luckily, I didn't get burned. So it just got a couple weirdos, but not bad. It was profitable right away. And I lived in the main house, which was really pretty, and big floor to ceiling windows and 8-inch crown molding and molding around the windows. It was really cool. And so I was able to take care of it and maintain it and put some washer dryers that I could collect some extra cash, coin operated laundry. These are the things that I just like actually, hey, where can I make a buck organically? And that's how I started.
And where was that first one? Was that in the San Francisco Bay Area? Or?
No, I had moved to the outside Boston.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
That was in Massachusetts. Yeah.
So it just needed a little bit of lipstick on the outside and then was able to rent it. You didn't have to do any major repairs on the inside?
I had people who were so anxious to be there because now I didn't say it was a painted lady. It was cream, pink, and purple. And even though my neighbors were in shock because this was puritanical New England, people were really attracted to this little butterfly of a house. It was so pretty, right? So, so they were so desperate to get in. They were like, just give me some paint and spackle. I'll fix it myself. Today, that would be unconscionable. But back in the day, I'm like, oh, good, I can save some money and they're just going to pay me. And it's going to go a little bit of Wild West, but it all worked out really well. I was making $500 a month and living for free. And then my interest rate was 15.5%, but it was an adjustable rate loan. So every month it ended up going down because we were at the peak when I bought it. So my mortgage was going down every single month, which was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And for people to hear that interest rate now, it's funny, right? There's no perspective of what's a high interest rate, what's not. People are still complaining about the rates right now, and it's holding some people on the sidelines. And to see that you did that with that one and ended up working out well. Do you still have that one, or did you end up selling it eventually?
No, my husband ended up with it in the divorce. He didn't want to buy it. So the story on that is really funny. And I don't mind this public, but he said, I'm not going to show up to the closing because I think that house is haunted.
Really?
And I was the person who instigated it. I had the down payment. I did everything. And he fought me tooth and nail. And then finally, I'm not going to show up. We got into a big fight. He showed up for the closing. And then 8 months later, I remember we had a house party and he's like, Jen, we're geniuses. This place is doing great. And look at him and I said, yeah, we are. But when it came to the divorce, which was my idea, ultimately it was like, give me the house or I don't divorce you. That was the deal.
Okay.
I said, okay, just go.
That's great.
A nice guy. I'm not going to complain about him. Obviously, there was a reason for the divorce. So,
yeah, for sure. And so obviously that one kind of set the stage for, hey, this real estate thing works. But was from there, what did you decide to do?
So once I renovated it, like paint and filled it up, then I was able to drop my insurance because it was almost uninsurable. That was a little nerve-wracking. Lloyd's of London insured it for this crazy amount of money. I think back in the day, I was paying like $1,100 a year. This is in 94.
Yeah.
I dropped the insurance to something normal. And then I was able to pull money out. And then I found another 6-family in a nice neighborhood. This one wasn't as messed up. It was more like a cookie cutter type of thing. And I rented it really easily. It was in good shape. It didn't need a lot of work. I did a little bit. And then after that, I don't know, you just get the bug. You're like, oh, this is cool. Little Monopoly game, right? And there's, I'm making money here, making money there. It was fun. Then I bought a 9-family and I got a good deal on a 9-family. And then I bought my first flip in 96. So that's how I started.
Okay. Like to start with a little bit of a multifamily and then go to a single family flip. But certainly if it's working, that seems like a natural progression. Okay. So clearly you like doing the flips, and I definitely hear about the HGTV side of things, but 52 flips. Tell me about that.
When I moved to California in 2001, I did have stickers with the prices. And the reality is it wasn't even the stickers with the prices. It's like, how can I rent this out and make any money? It doesn't work. It worked back east because the numbers worked. Right? It's like, hey, you buy it for this, you rent it off, the numbers work. Here, you buy, even a townhouse was $400,000 when I moved here in 2001. And I'm going to rent this out for $1,950 a month, plus pay all the expenses. Nothing worked. So I became a mortgage broker for a while as I was like watching the market. And then in 2008, when everything crashed, it was a big scramble trying to figure out what to do. But what ended up happening was the values were so suppressed that now there was opportunity to do number one flips with REOs and short sales and with distress. Now you had actually distressed assets and people were fleeing the market. It's the typical Warren Buffett dive in when people are fearful, retract, right? So people were aggressive, very aggressive in '01 to up to 6. And I had clients who lost homes. I was mortgage broker, I was their advisor, but that some people were very aggressive because the word on the street was it's going to go up forever. For some reason, I have a natural cheapo value person mentality. Bought my first home like much lower than it was going for. It was a distress sale. And so when I look at the numbers and it doesn't work, I'm like, well, why am I going to invest in this? So I didn't do anything except I became a mortgage broker and I got my sea legs in the California market in 2001 to 2007. My first flip was 2009.
Okay.
Because to me, it was like common sense. And people were like banking on the equity, which that does ultimately, equity makes you the big money, the wealth, right? But in the meantime, for me, it had to cash flow for it to make sense. Otherwise, I wasn't going to get involved.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. Yeah, the equity part of it is nice, but at some point it's got to make a business sense to hold on to while you're waiting for that appreciation and the equity that you're going to earn.
If you can hold a negative cash flow, I don't necessarily discourage it if you have a master plan. And if you really know what the direction is, it's not about, if you write a check for a couple $100, it's money in the bank if it's growing exponentially like it does in California. When things were going to the point where it was ballistic, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. For me, I couldn't wrap my head around it, especially a mortgage broker. I knew what kind of loans were out there. These neg-am loans, and they freaked me out. When I first saw a neg-am loan, 2001, I went, what the heck? What did he would buy? I freaked out because I was, again, being conservative. But then I ended up selling them. But I knew what I was doing, and I laid everything out for everybody. Here's what's going on. And you might want to change this in a couple of years. You don't want to bank. I was very conservative even when I was selling the neg-am loans. And some of them worked for people. They literally did work. I had a client who had a neg-am loan with World Savings back in the day for 25 years till she sold her house. It was crazy. Refinance every 3 years. She wasn't crazy. She was very conservative with it, but she would capitalize on it and she would refinance it when the value was higher. And she sold it, I think, right before the crash. But she had it. Nothing is bad or good. It just has to be looked at intelligently. And that's where I end up with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I agree. Going through 2007, 2008, I was a real estate broker. That's on the other side of, I guess, that coin. But, everything got a bad rap. The stated income loans, the 80-20, where you didn't have to have anything down. But for those that it worked out for, it worked well and it did what it was supposed to do. And for a lot of people, it was the right product. For some people, obviously, they got into it and it wasn't the right product for them and there was a bad ending. But I would say the majority of people, it could have worked out very well for them. So it's a good point.
It's about education and then having fundamentally a conservative approach.
Yeah.
If you have a neg-am loan, but you've got a bunch of cash in the bank and your income is not interrupted, every single person has a whole array of different circumstances. And that was part of the fun about being a mortgage broker, is taking all these puzzle pieces and putting it together in a way that really made sense for the person, where they could sleep at night and they were growing their portfolio. So that's what was exciting about that. But I did have clients who just skated right through that. But usually the marriage was intact, they were stable financially, they didn't lose their job, and they had some cash in the bank to weather the storm. So those factors all played into it. But it has to do with education and a holistic view of your financial portfolio.
For sure. So in '09, you started to flip some of these homes. And this was in the San Francisco Bay Area because they weren't working necessarily to hold them as a rental, but they sure worked well to flip.
Some worked really well as rentals. So I got a couple of rentals at that time. Not enough, never enough. Whatever that means, right? I think the only person who I think he bought enough is my friend Dan. Bought 65 apartment units between '08 and 13, 14. And he's like, I had enough. I'm like, okay, I didn't have anywhere near that. Picking up triplexes for 10 grand he was back east where I used to be. I'm like, dang, I should have stayed there. Right? So, but no, you could buy a single family house here in this area for $225. Now you might not see, again, that goes back to, you might be writing a little baby check for a little while, on that. But if you really understand the market in California, understand that traditionally the market doubles, the value of a home doubles every decade in California traditionally. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you're like, oh, I'm writing a $200 a month check for this, but the tenant is paying mostly everything. But the rents have the rents have tripled since 2010.
Have they really? Wow.
Almost tripled. If you bought something for 225, you'd be doing great. So I did do really well with the rentals that I did have. But again, and this was not the right thinking at the time, but I thought, and my accountant said, you could have $100,000 in the bank now, or you can get $100 a month rent. You want $100,000 to flip it, or you want $100 a month? And I was like, now that's short-sighted, but that's what my accountant said. And so that's what I majority did. So 52 homes that I did around that. It's more now, but around that time, I was doing about 52 at the time. That was the kind of idea. Just grab trucks of change and then reinvest it into the next deal and so on. Hindsight's 2020. We do the best we can, but I did take advantage of the opportunity. I'm not embarrassed about that at all. It was making lemonade out of lemons because it really was a rough time. And they're right around.
How 52 obviously is quite a few. Were you doing multiple in a year, or how did that progress? And did you, I would imagine throughout that time frame, you built a team of people you could rely on. You had experience on what you were looking for. So tell us a little bit about that. And I guess one follow-up question to that is just, was that all still in the San Francisco, the Bay Area?
Everything was in the Bay Area. I had no interest or need to go outside because there was extreme opportunity here. So basically, I built up a team very quickly, and luckily, I got a good team quickly. Because sometimes I didn't have a lot of time. I knew I had a very compressed time. That much I knew. So I basically didn't sleep for 5 or 6 years. But I knew I had this little window to really capitalize on the market at the time. So I got the best team that I possibly could. I had a short sale mitigator that I worked with. I had an assistant. I had an REO person. I had just quick team, and then we just churned, and I worked like crazy. But it worked out really well. What was the other question about that? Quick team, good team, solid team, people I could trust, worked really hard, and we really capitalized on that market, and I'm grateful. I suppose I could have done better if I had more skills, but I didn't know anything about short sales. I didn't know anything about REOs. I had no experience. So considering that I did capitalize on it, I learned how to deal with this on the fly because the time was really compressed. Okay, go time. Okay, how do I do this? I don't know. Let me figure it out. And it was a lot of fast study to learn, how to do that. And then getting teams together of the contractors. Lucky I got good contractors. I could have got bozos, but some of the guys at that time were out of work for a while because of the crash. There was no work. And by my giving them work, it was a benefit. So I got top quality as well. It was good. A little bit of luck and timing. They say, what do they say? The harder I work, the luckier I get. The timing was that the contractors were not in super demand. So I was benefiting them. They were benefiting me. So it ended up working out really well.
I guess how long did you flip homes? Are you still flipping or?
I did about 10 a year, which is not gangbusters. So you got guys who way beyond that, right? But that's fine. My first was December of 2009, which the bottom of the market was July of 2009. Okay, that was the bottom of the market. That's when, if you look at, because I day trading for a while and I learned about stock charts and historical charts. And that's when Warren Buffett got back into the market. He had pulled out a lot earlier. So he's like the oracle. He comes in July of 2009. And then my first flip was December of 2009. I was working on it. So from May, it was a short sale. And I made a little bit, not a lot, but it's okay because I learned the system. And I tapped that. If I make a couple bucks and I learn a system that I can duplicate, I'm good. So that's what happened. 2009. And then it was probably about 10 a year, maybe 12 a year. So it wasn't crazy, but short sales were really slow. REOs were very competitive. They started becoming very competitive at the courthouse steps. So for me, and I was busier than I could possibly imagine. So I was fine with that. And the other thing is I was really helping people. Once I understood the value of short sales and what it really does, I had clients who would come to me with a situation they didn't know what to do. They were upside down, lost their job, lost their wife, all that. And when we unpacked it and we ended up short selling it, I would pull their credit 6 months later, and if everything else was normal, their credit was back up to 700. This happened several times. because I was still a mortgage broker. So I could pull their credit and say, hey, we can get you back into a house now. So I was consulting with people, and then some people were sure sell worthy or whatever. So I wasn't just flipping. I was consulting, I was helping, I was doing loan mod, I was doing everything. But the flipping was something that was very much present with me at the time. But I was at my max. So, okay, I'm okay with the 10 a year. I was like, it was fine.
10 a year is a lot, right? I know there are definitely people that do more than that, but that is a lot of flipping in 1 year. That's great. And that's cool. That's actually the house we're in now is a short sale. Same thing. I helped them, which ended up actually helping us quite a bit as well. So tell me where did this lead into flips being featured on HGTV? Got to tell me that story.
None of those were in, these were later. Okay. I didn't completely stop, right? I did day trading for a while thinking it would be less stressful than real estate, but it wasn't true. It was more stressful. So yeah, back in real estate, I started flipping again, and I have my broker and mortgage broker license. I just started getting back involved. I did a beautiful property in Stockton, California. Stockton is considered a negative place and has some really yucky parts, but it has some stunningly very wealthy. There's some places, beautiful mansions like George Washington Estates. I bought a property in distress, all brick, on North Country Club Boulevard. It's a really nice area, interesting homes. We full clean out, and we actually power washed it from the inside because the entire thing was brick. So those brick floor, everything was brick, but it had a cool layout. We ended up doing a really neat job on it, and it got featured on a House Hunters. It was the highest end of the three. They were picking, so with House Hunters, they have 3 houses they pick, and ours was the highest one. But unfortunately, HGTV dummied down my house. They took some things off the walls. They had like crappy lighting in some areas because they didn't want it to be too nice, which freaked my stager out because when she found out we were going to be on HGTV, she was like calling all her friends, getting her popcorn ready. Oh my God, my house. And she was all excited. And then she's like, oh, they took down my stuff. And so it was cool, but it was like, it wasn't as exciting as we thought it was going to be. And it was my house, but it wasn't me because the buyers had a realtor. Okay. And then the second one was a similar situation. Again, it was my house, my renovation. But the buyer's agent had a really good story. And the story was, this was basically released right during the California fires. And the couple were firefighters. And they were same-sex firefighters who had a little child. And they were buying my house. And because it was a good human interest story in the Bay Area, which we support firefighters and we support same-gender relationships, it was more of a human interest story. But that was an old farmhouse in a phenomenal location, but it was pretty much falling apart. It had a very unsavory story. I won't go into it, with a tenant, and then I ended up helping my client. So it wasn't like I bought it and flipped it. I was the realtor and the renovator.
Okay. Okay.
So I helped her out, bailed her out of a situation. She had moved out of state and the tenants took over and trashed it. But we did a beautiful farmhouse style inside with the classic subway and open shelving at the time, which was really cool, which is not that long ago, but now open shelving's out. But it was a really neat project and it ended up beautiful and they were super happy. And so again, the realtor was who represented the buyers were showing my house. Same thing. I have to be calling HGTV to see how I could be on the spotlight, but I just never do that. I was just doing my work and then I got, okay, they like my work. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's cool though. Either way, that's neat to have two properties, featured on TV. I mean, for what it's worth. So
yeah, my last property I worked with a team was really a trophy. It was the most magnificent of anything I've done. And I worked with a good team and a good partner who had a good vision and we worked really well together. And we basically bought a house in a really pristine area of San Carlos with 1,700 square feet. We bought it for $2 million and we demolished it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I used to think, who would do that? But now I know.
Yeah.
We invested $1.25 million and we flipped it for 4.8.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
That was my last one. And if you look at the before and after pictures and you look at the neighborhood, then the answer is very clear. Why did they do that? You just look at, this is why they did that. Because the little tiny house was like a sticking out like a sore thumb in a highly developing neighborhood where everybody was remodeling their homes. They had a lot of money infused in that area. It's heart of Silicon Valley, beautiful neighborhood, beautiful location, great weather right near San Francisco, just fabulous amenities in that area. And this house was a little dumpy, ugly box. It was like nothing. It wasn't like cool old. It was like just old.
Yeah.
So
That's neat. So when did you do that one?
that one was about 2 years ago.
Okay. So are you still doing some flips here and there? Tell me, I guess, a little bit as to, Ginger, what all are you doing now?
Right now, I have actually liquidated about half of my residential portfolio, and I'm looking into strip centers. Commercial now is going through a change, and I work with a group. We have a mastermind group. We work together once a week. We do a Zoom call once a week, and then once every quarter, we get together in person, and we swap stories, we swap resources, and you name it. But they take down $1 billion a quarter in commercial real estate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A group of 40 people. So there are people who are way over my head, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Yeah, those are the best rooms to be in.
Be the smart one in the room. I'm tired of that. Then people are always glomming onto me, asking me questions. Right now, literally this morning, we were analyzing a deal that's in distress, a strip center that's in distress. So a couple of partners of mine, we were going over the Excel spreadsheet, going all the details and how we can create a strategy to possibly take this down. So that's where my focus is right now. And as I mentioned to you before, I'm remodeling my house, which is making me crazy. It's almost done. Thank you, God. And I still have my Airbnbs. Love those. Those are doing great. But my next frontier is definitely commercial. And I'm excited about it. I've been studying in earnest for about 1 year. And I have not pulled the trigger on anything because that would be foolish. If you just, I'm going to wake up and buy a shopping mall. Anybody can write a check, right? But you don't do that if you don't know what you're doing. Education is education. So.
For sure. And it sounds like you've got a good group, just being part of that mastermind. I assume some of them already have experience in that. You guys are analyzing deals together. So you're getting feedback from multiple groups of people. So that's great.
Yeah, and the code in the group is to help. That's like the culture, you know, to help the newer people. And the newer people sometimes may have money to contribute and invest in with some of the people who are more seasoned. And so the money's safe because they explain to you exactly what they're doing and how. And so it's been, honestly, I was very intimidated in the beginning. I was very overwhelmed and frustrated. And quite honestly, my brain was very lazy learning all of this. I kept having to say, just focus, just one thing at a time. It was very intimidating, but I'm very proud of myself because I stuck through it. I try to tell myself I have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, even though I sometimes I don't want to do this. Let me go watch TV. No, you're going to sit here and you're going to stare at this Excel spreadsheet till you understand it. Understand that? I can't understand it. Yes, there are 6 pages and you're going to, over time, I'm like, learning is exciting when you start seeing yourself just learn a little bit more, and you start getting a little bit better. And then my comprehension is then finally I'm able to pull in the scheme of the residential. In the beginning, it felt like a different world. It felt like this is not anything like anything that I've known over 30 years. But over time, as I pieced together the pieces of commercial real estate that were incomprehensible to me, now I'm seeing easily how it cross-references what I already know. And it's getting easier, even after a year. But at first, really frustrating. And, so that's where I'm at right now. It's time to renew my mortgage broker license because the end of the year, you have to do that every year. And so I've got some listings going on and some loans and all that while I take on this next frontier. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And tell me a little bit about your short-term rentals. You mentioned those. We didn't really talk too much about them, but where are you investing from a short-term rental standpoint and how's it going?
So they're going well. I have no complaints. I would say that I actually created a PowerPoint presentation. I've given a class several times about how to retire with Airbnb rentals. It's a little bit of a passion project for me. And my intention was to buy more before I joined the commercial academy. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think that there's bigger fish to fry here. So I curtailed it. So I've got 4. And then I also hire myself out as a property manager as a co-host because I'm a super host. So if somebody wants to become an Airbnb host, they can come to me. I can help set them up and basically act as a property manager. And they can go immediately into super host status and get the top billing. And they can capitalize on my experience and I've got a whole program because I've developed it over 5 years. I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning and I was a very bad host. I just wanted to pay the mortgage without, because it was a flip that didn't flip. It flopped. There was a market correction and I was like, I don't want to take a loss. So what do I do? And I ended up Airbnb-ing it. And now I built a pickleball court and a second unit and it's doing great. But over the time, I learned what to do, what not to do. And so I honed a beautiful system because I was passionate about it for years. And I love decorating and that was so much fun. So now I help people who want, I've got 3 people who just said, hey, they work for Apple. Like they're just like too busy. They're like, I have a couple houses. You want to Airbnb them? Yep. So there's so many great podcasts online in learning how to do that, but it's basically the numbers. It's a little bit scary because you don't always know exactly what you're going to make. You just squint eye it based on AirDNA and Mashvisor, and you have to run the comparables. There's a whole system to where to buy. So one of my properties I bought outside of California in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, which is doing really well. And then outside of near Sacramento, the properties are a little bit better value. The numbers work a little bit better. But I have a client who's here and they're doing really well, but they've had the house for a while and they have a low mortgage.
Yeah, that helps.
That I would say if somebody wants to get involved with their Airbnb, just dive into the resources. I have one video on my YouTube channel about how to retire with the Airbnb, but then I have so much more advanced since then. That was like a baseline of how to save money on furniture and stuff like that.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
I love high-end looks for bargain basement prices. That like juices me. But I have a new one where I do all of the analytics and a Mashvisor, the AirDNA, that like all of that. And so that's really interesting stuff. But you can literally go across the country. If you've got a good team, you can make money anywhere. Now, you couldn't do that 20 years ago, but today you can. So if you're open to what's going on now, just learn.
Yeah. And gosh, a lot there. And you're not slowing down. If anything, you're maybe speeding up a little bit, it looks like, with the commercial academy and with these strip centers and everything that you've got over 30 years. Tell me a little bit about maybe some of the various lessons that you've learned, and I'd like to ask what advice you'd give somebody who's maybe just starting out, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's somebody who's maybe they're looking towards retirement. They're thinking, gee, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this as quickly as possible. What are some advice maybe that you can give people that you've learned over the years?
There's 2 very different categories of people, right? Person starting out is one piece of advice, like someone who's young, they got all the time on their hands. Someone who's ready for retirement and their bank balance is not looking as good as they had hoped. I think the financial strategies that I've read on the media, I think a lot of them are just garbage. Oh, just save more money. Like, really? I'm 55 years old. I'm going to just save another like $2,000 a month. I'm like, how's that going to happen? My advice to anybody who's later in life and their bank balance isn't looking good is to seriously look into real estate. But I would honestly have them look into commercial real estate, and I would direct them to the Commercial Academy. And anybody can just reach out to me, Ginger Crystal Faith. I'll tell you all about it. Because I have 2 friends who, one of them was doing okay, fine, but she was a W-2 employee with her husband, who also W-2 employee. And 5 years ago, they were just to their 401k. That's all they had. They joined the Commercial Academy and they're a good team. And they own 8 shopping centers today. They're all cash flowing. I have another girlfriend who she did well, but not really well. Not like financial orbit, just she did well, like plugged along. But she got ambitious. She had a specific dream. She wanted to buy a ranch and she wanted to do organic farming. And she wanted to have enough money. She didn't have to worry about it anymore. And she was these 2 are some of my best friends. So I know their stories intimately because I knew them when they started, and she bought a 52 unit apartment complex in major distress. Now, it took her like 2 years to find it. She's hunting. It took her 2 years to find something. But she found the diamond in the rough. They flipped it, and she sold it for multiple 7 figures within 2 years.
Very nice.
Or she can figure out a way to get another $2,000 a month into her financial planner's account. So the concept, back when Donald Trump was popular, he said, you have to think big. And it's still a thought. Think big. And at the time, I was like, what does that mean, think big? Now I get it. Think big means it's like 52 units, not a single family. Just thinking bigger. Now, do you want to buy a skyscraper? Probably not if you're just starting. So you need an education. You need a team around you. to support you. There's a lot of sharks in real estate. It's the reality. And the bigger the numbers, the bigger the sharks. So I feel really blessed. I've got people around me that I got to do my own work. I got to think and analyze and prepare and all that. But they'll help me to see. I call them my Jedi Council, right? They'll help me to see things that I don't see. Oh, I didn't see that. That could have been a $100,000 mistake. Thank you very much. So start getting people that you trust around you. Critical. Watch out for the scammers. There's a lot of them out there, especially with social media now. So I'd be very careful. The bigger the numbers, the bigger the sharks. So be careful, get the right people around you, but don't be afraid. Just be cautious.
Yeah. And Ginger, on that same note, you're talking about the mastermind that you're part of right now with these commercial properties and the strip centers. When you went into Airbnb, I know it was a necessity. Did you turn to similar type other people that are doing it, or how did you learn what you learned on that side? And then I would even go further back to when you first started the flipping. Did you go to masterminds or learn from people or go to RIAs, or how did you learn some of this along the ways? Because obviously some people stick with one thing and they've stayed with just this one thing, and you've been able to do a little bit of everything.
No, I'm a constant learner, constant networker. I have brilliant people around me. I'm really lucky. I don't know why brilliant people like me. But they do. I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of really talented people, but I'm humble and an agreeable person, and I don't mind asking questions. I don't have a lot of ego. So it's been a rocky ride, and I've had my share of sharks and shark bites, but I've done tons of RIAs, tons of reading, podcasts. There's so many great podcasts out now that you can learn from. Now I've got my mastermind, which I rely on heavily. I've got a brilliant accountant. I've got an ace lawyer, but in different areas, you need different lawyers for other geographic areas. But absolutely, I've been very blessed to have really smart people. I've got great contractors who are honest. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. But yeah, add value, whatever that is. Be the best person that you possibly can. Show up to the table as the best you, whether that's curious, have energy, spunk. Some of the older guys and gals have been around a while. They like somebody with spunk, ambition. So just show up to the best you as often as you can and be helpful. And then forge your path. Bring things to the table of value. So for example, right now I'm in the middle of so many things, but I took the time to research some deals with this little window of opportunity I had. Luckily, I have talented people with me, and I went to one of my friends and I said, hey, do you have time to check out this deal? And I handed over. It's in your backyard. It's in California. And I did this with another deal. Hey, do you have time to check out this deal that I had? I brought it to them. They're like, okay, we'll check it out. We'll get back. I come back with a 6-sheet Excel spreadsheet of an analysis because they happen to have the time on their hands at the time. And I happened to bring value to each other. This morning, we were spending 2 hours collaborating on how to take down the deal. If it's, okay, we got to do this or that. Where's the money going to come from? How are we going to do all that stuff? So do what you can to bring something, especially if you bring your mind. So when I brought the deal, it wasn't like some crappy old deal because I've been doing this for a year now. I'm not a pro, but I said, this is why I like this deal. It's got this. And they're like, yeah, let me see that. So now they see, I know what I'm talking about. Right.
Yeah.
But not like big time, but I know what I'm talking about to an extent. Enough to bring a good deal, and then everybody says, yeah, that's a good deal. Okay. Nice, that's a good deal.
Yeah, no, that's great.
This has been really good. It's neat to see just so many different angles, just see your journey has been really cool. And like I said, it's not even over yet, right? You've got just so much more ahead of you with the commercial strip centers. So I can't wait to have you back on the Wealth Flow telling me about the first shopping center you took. Ginger, if you could tell the audience, where can they find out more about you if they want to follow you, if they want to, I don't know if you ever joint venture with people, ever get other people involved with your deals, whatever that may be. But yeah, how can people find out more about you?
Ginger Crystal Faith. I'm daily on Facebook. I just post something daily, something inspirational daily, or something about my journey daily. In addition to that, I've got a YouTube channel. You can find my contact information, my email, on my phone, my cell phone. It's all pretty much available. I'm on LinkedIn, and that's pretty easy. I think I'm my only Ginger Crystal Faith that's in real estate as a broker and mortgage broker and all that stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So you've already tackled the person who's maybe looking at their account and they don't quite have enough for retirement and given some great tips on that. So I'll ask you the two questions that I ask every guest. And one of them is really just any advice you would give somebody who's maybe just starting out in their investment journey. So somebody that has a little bit more time on their hands.
I'd say learn, connect, add value, have a positive attitude, develop your positive attitude. The common denominator with people who are real estate entrepreneurs is they are always working on their personal development. So you go to these classes and the ones who are doing stuff, they're pulling out the Tony Robbins, the Jim Rohn, they're pulling out all these classic and some current concepts of personal development. If you're not into personal development, go ahead and get a W-2 paying job that is boring and that doesn't challenge you. But if you're into personal development or you think that the carrot might be big enough for you to be motivated for personal development, start getting into personal development. So I would say that right off the bat, just develop yourself. Psycho-Cybernetics, great book, right? Start doing that. I would say number one. And number two, if you can, start a simple, small business. Something that will give you tax write-offs, something that will give you experience in dealing with customers, and something that will give you time so that you can get involved with real estate. Because real estate gives you money ultimately, but it takes your money in the beginning. A lot of the gurus say, okay, do wholesaling, then you get instant cash. That's one way. I'm not going to disrespect that. But that wasn't my path. And so but you're asking me for my opinion. I'd say, what kind of small business can you do where you can get cash? And then you squirrel away the cash while you're learning about real estate and then decide what kind of asset you want to buy. Talk to other people. What are they doing? Talk to successful people. What are they doing while you're squirreling away money? Yeah. Maybe at that point you got some cash. Maybe you're too timid to go and take down something, but maybe you know somebody that they have proven track record. They will die before they injure someone else's money. They're good people. I would say take some of the money and say, hey, can I invest with you? And then learn from them. Say, hey, can I be on your calls? Can I learn about what you're doing? Then you keep learning before you take on your own. And the other thing I like to encourage people, know your strengths. And that just matter of just finding it out, right? So I have pictures of me in the 1994, my first flip. I've got the tool belt and hiking boots and then my painting. And I have more paint on me than I had on the walls. But I was having a good time with the guys, learning this, learning that. But ultimately, that's not my strength. But it didn't mean I didn't want to try it. Dive in, learn your strengths. You're like, I love this. I hate that. And then play to your strengths. And then you'll have a good, rich, rewarding, and financially rewarding future.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. Okay, how about a book recommendation? You threw one of those in, but book recommendation that doesn't have to be real estate related, that just something that's been impactful that you've read.
I have read over 1,000 books on personal development, well over. My current love is Thou Shalt Prosper. And I believe it's Daniel. It's a rabbi. Okay. And one of the things I have been continually fascinated with my whole life is like, why do the Jews, they're a tiny group, they're oppressed from every angle. Why you could plop them anywhere and they explode with success?
Yeah.
Being oppressed. Why? And they're successful. They love their families and they make a lot of money. And a lot of people make jokes about them. And there's a lot of anti-Semitism, which I think is completely unwarranted, but that's my own personal opinion. Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So when I look at the Jewish community, I say, okay, what are they doing? So Thou Shalt Prosper actually breaks down their entire philosophy in a really elegant way, which basically, I'll tell you one little secret in it, is that the American mind is being programmed inappropriately regarding money. This is a benign way of saying it, okay? A way of saying is people are being brainwashed into poverty.
Yeah.
A little more aggressive, but okay, but I think it's important to stand guard at the door of your mind. This is so critical. And it's an everyday process. It's something that we live with. They have a different way of thinking about money, and it's a different orientation. So I love that book. I'm halfway done. And what's strange, coincidental, if you believe in universal coincidences, which I do, I was on a quick trip. I had the book with me. I bumped into a very well-off Jewish merchant. And we happened to have an amazing conversation. I told him, oh, I'm reading this book. It's all about you guys.
Yeah.
And now he's become one of my dearest friends. This was just 2 months ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was so fascinated. Everything he thought about, it was like a mirror of the book, which is so fascinating to me that I was absorbed with this book. And then I met somebody, and then he introduced me to his synagogue and to a number of people. I had wonderful connections with many beautiful people by that invitation. I knew nothing about that culture at all, but I was open. I was fascinated. I was in a positive vibe around them. And then the universe opened up that connection. And I just think that's how the world works, right?
Nah, for sure. Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. This has been really cool. I appreciate it, Ginger, and loved hearing about your story. And I think a great book recommendation. I got that. That is the new one for me. I asked this for the audience, but I really ask it to figure out what's the next book I'm going to tackle. So got it. I'll check that one out next. So thank you so much for being a guest on The Wealth Flow. This has been great.
Okay. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Ginger.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.